The sound of steel biting into ancient stone is something you never forget. It was a sharp, sickening crack that split the night air, a sound of violation that echoed in the sudden, deafening silence that followed. I stood frozen by the fire, the flickering light dancing across Mark's face. His features, which I'd found handsome just hours before, were twisted into a mask of drunken rage. In his hand, he gripped our camp hatchet, its blade glinting as he raised it again. He swung, and another piece of history turned to dust. The petroglyph, a 2,000-year-old carving of a bighorn sheep, was now permanently scarred. A story that had survived millennia was being erased by a man I'd known for 6 weeks, all because I told him he was scaring me. His fury wasn't spent. He turned from the rock art and staggered toward the delicate lava formations nearby, their thin, glassy layers a testament to the slow, patient power of nature. He brought the hatchet down again and again, shattering them with a mindless, brutal force. The sharp cracks of breaking rock felt like bones snapping. In that moment, he wasn't just my boyfriend anymore. He was a monster. My name is Bella, and for 10 years, the wilderness has been my sanctuary. It's the one place where things make sense, where every living thing has a purpose and a place. It's a world of consequences, but also one of profound peace. This backpacking trip was supposed to be a celebration of that. More than that, it was supposed to be a test. I'd been seeing Mark for a little over a month, and he talked a beautiful game. He spoke of loving the outdoors, of wanting to escape the noise of the city, of sharing the same passions I held so dear. After the isolation of the last few years, I wanted to believe him. I was lonely, and his words were exactly what I wanted to hear. So I planned this trip meticulously, choosing a trail that was challenging but rewarding, a place of sacred history and breathtaking beauty. I thought if we could connect out here, we could connect anywhere. It became clear on the first day that his words were just an empty echo. The man who claimed to love the wild began complaining before we were even 2 miles from the car. The pack I had helped him choose was too heavy. The sun was too hot. The trail was too steep. Every step seemed to be an unbearable burden for him. Worse than the complaining was the sheer incompetence. His pack was heavy because he'd snuck in 3 times more whiskey than water, a mistake so basic it was borderline dangerous. He treated the trail like his personal garbage can, and I found myself trailing behind him, quietly picking up the protein bar wrappers he'd casually discarded. I tried to be patient. I reminded myself that he was new to this, that maybe he was just nervous or trying too hard to seem experienced. I gave him the benefit of the doubt, explaining the importance of packing out what you pack in, of conserving water, of respecting the trail. He would just nod, a smirk on his face, as if I were giving a lecture he had no intention of listening to. My patience began to wear thin, like a fraying rope. My carefully planned trip, my escape into the peace I craved, was turning into a high-stakes babysitting job. I was constantly managing his moods, his supplies, and his blatant disregard for the very environment he claimed to love. The sanctity of my church was being trampled by muddy, careless boots. The real danger of his ignorance became terrifyingly clear on our 3rd day. He had guzzled through his own water supply, mixing much of it with his whiskey. He looked at me, his eyes wide with a flicker of real panic, and asked what we were going to do. The nearest water source on the map was a day's hike away. This was the moment his bravado finally cracked, replaced by a petulant fear. But this is my world. I know how to read the land, how to find life where others see only rock and sand. I left him at the campsite and, against all odds, found a small, hidden spring trickling from a rock face, a lifeline he had neither the skill nor the respect to find for himself. I thought saving us from his own recklessness would earn me some gratitude, maybe even a little humility. Instead, it fueled his ego. He saw the running water not as a gift to be conserved, but as an excuse to celebrate. He broke out the last of the whiskey and began to drink with a desperate intensity. I watched him, a cold knot of dread tightening in my stomach. When I told him he needed to slow down, that his behavior was becoming erratic and frightening, something in his eyes went dark. That's when he picked up the hatchet. Now, standing in the ruins of his tantrum, the fire crackling beside the shattered history, the silence was different. It was no longer peaceful. It was heavy, filled with the weight of his desecration. He tossed the hatchet to the ground with a dull thud and stumbled back towards the tent, oblivious to the gravity of what he had done. I looked at the scarred petroglyph, at the broken pieces of the lava formations scattered like shrapnel. A cold, clear anger washed over me, extinguishing every last ember of affection I had for him. He had mistaken my patience for weakness. He had mistaken my love for nature as a quaint little hobby. He thought he could break something sacred and just walk away. He thought his actions had no consequences. He was about to learn that some lines, once crossed, can never be uncrossed. And I would be the one to teach him that lesson. And I would be the one to teach him that lesson. That lesson began in silence the next morning. I broke down our camp with an efficiency that left no room for conversation. I packed my gear, then his, moving with a quiet purpose that seemed to unsettle him more than any shouting match would have. He watched me, his face puffy and sullen, nursing a hangover and a bruised ego. The hike out was a blur of his voice, a 3-hour storm of insults and blame. He screamed that I was overreacting, that it was just a rock. He called me every name he could think of, his words echoing off the canyon walls. He was trying to provoke me, to drag me down into the mud with him, to make this my fault. But his rage wasn't igniting mine. Instead, it was chilling it. With every shouted insult, my fear and disgust from the night before hardened into something else. It became a cold, clear, diamond-hard resolve. I just kept walking, one foot in front of the other, my eyes fixed on the trail ahead. When we finally reached the trailhead parking lot, the dusty gravel crunching under our boots, he thought he had won. He jabbed a thumb toward his car, the entitlement back in his voice. "Get in the car," he barked, not a request but an order. "We're leaving." I stopped and looked at him, really looked at him, for the first time all morning. I met his gaze, and my voice was as steady and quiet as the stones he had shattered. "I'm not sure if I'm riding with you." That small act of defiance, that quiet refusal to obey, was everything. The air crackled between us. His face contorted with shock, then fury. He thought he was in control, but in that quiet moment he had lost it all. He just didn't know it yet. He stormed off toward the car, shouting over his shoulder that he was going to get gas, and that I'd better be there when he got back. He thought he was abandoning me, stranding me in the middle of nowhere to teach me a lesson about who was in charge. It was the biggest mistake he could have possibly made. He gave me the one thing I needed more than anything else: time. As his car sped away, kicking up a cloud of dust, a profound sense of calm settled over me. His rage was gone, and in its place was a quiet, empty space for me to think. A gentle voice pulled me from my thoughts. "Are you all right, dear?" I turned to see an older woman with kind eyes standing in the doorway of a large recreational vehicle. She had seen the whole exchange, the shouting and the angry departure. She saw my distress, and she offered me a safe harbor. She invited me into her cool, air-conditioned RV, away from the blistering sun and the lingering poison of his anger. She gave me a cold bottle of water, and for the first time in days, I felt truly safe. Sitting at her small dinette table, I took out my phone. My fingers didn't shake. I didn't search for flights home or for a taxi service. I opened my web browser, and my search was precise. I typed in the direct number for the regional office of the National Park Service. My expertise isn't just in navigating trails, it's in understanding the laws that protect these sacred places. His fatal flaw was his profound, arrogant ignorance of those laws. He believed he was above consequences. My revenge wouldn't be loud or angry, screamed across a parking lot. It would be quiet, official, and utterly devastating. I pressed the call button. I pressed the call button. A voice answered on the second ring, calm and professional. "National Park Service, how can I help you?" My own voice was steady, betraying none of the turmoil from the last 12 hours. I was no longer a scared girlfriend. I was a witness reporting a crime. Methodically, I laid out the facts. I gave her our exact location, the name of the trail, and the specific campsite where the desecration had occurred. I described the damage to the 2,000-year-old petroglyph and the shattered lava formations. I gave her his full name, a description of him, and his car, right down to the license plate number I had memorized the day we left. The dispatcher confirmed that a ranger was being dispatched from a nearby station. A knot of tension tightened in my stomach. The station was 30 minutes away. Would Mark get back first? What would he do if he found me talking to a park ranger? Then my phone lit up, a harsh buzz against the dinette table. It was a text from him. The message was a garbled, furious mess of typos. "You are a fucking stupid bitch and I was really leaving." A grim, cold satisfaction washed over me. He was creating his own evidence trail, a digital confession born of pure ego. I took a deep breath, my fingers steady as I typed a simple two-word reply. "Please go." It was not a plea, it was a dismissal. I hit send, severing the last tie between us. Minutes later, a dark green truck with the official National Park Service emblem on the door pulled into the lot. A man in a crisp uniform stepped out, his expression calm and observant. My plan unfolded not with a shout, but with a quiet, detailed report to a federal officer, setting the immense, unyielding wheels of justice into motion. We spoke for a long time, right there in the cool sanctuary of the Kind Woman's RV. I showed him the photos I had taken on my phone just after dawn, documenting every chip in the ancient stone and every shattered piece of rock. I recounted the events of the night before, my voice even and factual. His friendly demeanor slowly evaporated, replaced by a grave seriousness. He looked from the photos on my phone to my face, his eyes full of a quiet professional anger. He confirmed what I already knew in my heart. This wasn't just simple vandalism. It was a federal crime, a violation of the Archaeological Resources Protection Act. He explained they wouldn't pursue Mark down the highway with sirens blaring like in a movie. The process was slower, more methodical, and far more terrifying. A full investigation would be launched, and a federal arrest warrant was a very real possibility. At that exact moment, Mark was probably speeding down the interstate, music blasting, feeling powerful and smug for leaving me stranded. He had no idea that he wasn't a victor escaping an argument. He was a felon fleeing a crime scene. His name and face, the description of his car, were already being logged in a federal database. He thought he'd left me with nothing, believing he had stranded me and taught me a lesson. But standing there beside that ranger's truck, I was the one with all the power. But standing there beside that ranger's truck, I was the one with all the power. That power wasn't about anger or revenge, not really. It was the quiet, solid weight of justice, the feeling of setting something right that had gone terribly wrong. It was a power that didn't need to be shouted, it just needed to be used correctly. 6 months later, that feeling of justice felt as warm and satisfying as the bloomin' onions sitting between us. The couple from the RV, Carol and Dave, had insisted on driving out to visit me. Over emails and phone calls, they had become the honorary grandparents I never knew I needed. We sat in a noisy restaurant, surrounded by laughter and the clatter of plates. Carol reached across the table and patted my hand. "It's just so good to see you smiling like this, dear," she said, her eyes kind. "We were so worried about you that day." Dave nodded, taking a sip of his iced tea. "That young man had a storm in his eyes. You did the right thing, Bella, the only thing." I smiled, a genuine smile that reached my own eyes. I was hiking again, finding my peace among the pines and the granite peaks. The wilderness felt more like a sanctuary than ever before. I told them what I'd heard, the final chapter of Mark's story that had reached me through the embarrassed friend who had first introduced us. The consequences of his drunken, violent tantrum had finally caught up with him, and they were more severe than he could have ever imagined in his arrogant ignorance. It wasn't a local sheriff who came knocking. It was the Federal Bureau of Investigation. They didn't show up at his apartment. They paid a visit to his parents' suburban home, where he had apparently been hiding out. His attempt to look like a big, tough man in the desert had ended with federal agents on his mommy and daddy's doorstep. He was facing tens of thousands of dollars in fines and restitution for the destruction of archaeological resources. The government, it turns out, can put a very high price on a 2,000-year-old piece of history. But the money was only the beginning. He was also facing potential prison time. His act of rage didn't just end our brief relationship. It saddled him with a federal conviction that will shadow him for the rest of his life. Every job application, every background check will carry the mark of what he did in that sacred place. He tried to break something ancient and beautiful to hurt me, to show me how small I was compared to his anger. He swung that hatchet to leave a scar on history and on me. But the rock, while damaged, is still there. And I am stronger and more at peace than ever. In the end, the only thing he permanently destroyed was his own future.